Hello, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome to my channel. Today I'm continuing my little mini-series about artwork of Dante and the Divine Comedy. This one is going to feature artwork of Dante and Beatrice, and it's based on a blog post which I originally wrote on the 15th of November 2021, and these are artworks of them outside of the poem. Some of them are scenes from La Vita Nuova, and some are just basically like the artist's imagining, or basically just scenes from their own lives, and not all of them are Dante and Beatrice together, by the way. The Salutation of Beatrice, 1859, by pre-raphaelite Dante Gabriel Rossetti, has long been one of my favorites. I've used it as a desktop picture and blog banner several times in the past. It perfectly captures the longing and gnawing at the heart of unrequited love, being so close to someone you adore so much, yet unable to express your true feelings. And every time I look at this, I can kind of like feel what Dante is feeling. Like Mr. Rossetti did such an absolutely wonderful job of capturing his quasi namesake's feelings. It's just, sometimes art can be used so much. And I should also mention this artwork is part of what is called a diptych. It's basically like kind of like a two-part artwork. Like there's one panel on each side, and it's meant to be close like a book. And a triptych, which I'll mention later on in this video, is basically what it sounds like, a three-part artwork on a panel. And I'm absolutely, Mr. Dante Gabriel Rossetti, he's one of most people's best known pre-Raphaelite artists. That was like a whole school in Britain. Obviously, that's a topic for another subject. Mr. Rossetti was born Gabriel Charles Dante Rossetti, but began using his final middle name as his first name in honor of the supreme poet, Il Sommo Poeta, as he's known in Italian. Throughout his artistic career, he painted many Dantean artworks, and he has a style that's immediately recognizable, even if he's not painting a Dantean artwork, and some of his art will feature again later on in this video. I absolutely adore this painting. Entitled Incipit Vita Nova, The New Life Begins. It's by Cesare Sacaggi, and shows Dante and Beatrice as children. He painted it in 1903 in pre-Raphaelite style, though he belonged to the school of Tortona. That is, a generation of artists working in Tortona in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. And this is one of several paintings in this video which has inspired some scenes and stuff in my current one of my current works in progress, an alternative history about Dante and Beatrice. And I absolutely just love, again, the look on his face and in his eyes in this painting. It just like so like perfectly, like beautifully, emotionally, poignantly captures the the feeling of unrequited love, or you're like developing feelings for someone, not sure how that person feels about you yet, and like they're looking at basically like the walls, or like the city of Florence, which was called Firenze in the Middle Ages, like basically laid out behind them. And that, as I mentioned, it inspired one of the scenes in chapter 1 of the alternative history. Dante's first meeting with Beatrice was painted by pre-Raphaelite Simeon Solomon sometime between 1859 and 1863. Surprisingly, I haven't found many paintings or drawings of this famous meeting of May Day 1274. And as you can see from the painting, there are a lot of girls in the picture. We know from Folco Portinari's will of December 1289, which was published, written or whatever, compiled about a year or so before he passed away. And in that, he names all 11 of his children. So that's how we basically know the names of Beatrice's siblings, and we don't know their specific ages. So I kind of had to use some like guesswork and extrapolation and stuff in my alternative history to see like, oh, because we do know from the will like which one of them were adults and which ones were underage, because he did specify that. And we know Beatrice had 5 sisters. Her older sister was Ravignana, who I'm really loving developing as a secondary character in the alternative history. And I'm also marrying her off to someone she didn't marry in real life, because I just wanted to make her a bit of like a free spirit who was able to marry like a man of her own choosing. And then her younger sisters are Vanna, Thea, Margherita, and Castoria. And so basically that's what all the girls presumably in the picture are, because like Mr. Solomon must have known she had a lot of sisters. And when he's like meeting her, he's also meeting his sister. So in my alternative history, they meet in a little bit of a different way, which is again based on chapter 2 of La Vita Nuova. And then La Vita Nuova does inspire many things in the alternative history. Pre-Raphaelite Marie Spartali Stillman did another painting of that meeting in 1887, the May Feast at the house of Folco Portinari, 1274. For a while, I was confused. I thought that meeting took place in 1275, because Dante seems to say he was 9 years old, very close to his 10th birthday, or at least according to modern understanding of how he's expressing himself. But you have to read the opening line of chapter 2 of La Vita Nuova more carefully. 9 times already since my birth, the heaven of light had circled back to almost the same point, means, in the heliocentric understanding of the universe, that the sun had made almost 9 full circles around the earth since his birth. From late May 1265 to May Day 1274 was just shy of 9 such revolutions. Thus, Dante was actually 8 and about to turn 9. Like, yeah, like from a modern perspective, you're thinking like, oh, could he have expressed himself any like more confusingly? Like, just dude, say you're like 9 years old or about to turn 9, but obviously like it's a lot more poetic the way he expressed it. And people back in the Middle Ages, they probably definitely would have basically like understood what he was expressing himself in a certain way because of it. Like, you can't just really like judge people in the past because, oh, they don't write or like use expressions like we would. So basically just like take a little time to think through it and understand it. That's also another issue I have with people saying, oh, Russian names are so confusing, I can't figure them out. So like maybe spend more than 5 minutes like and just figure out what they're actually doing. It's really not that complicated when you actually think things through and don't just say, oh, I can't understand it immediately, it must be nonsense or like just weird and confusing. Salvatore Postiglione did this artwork, entitled simply Dante and Beatrice, either sometime in the late 19th century or very early 20th. In so many paintings of Dante, he's depicted holding a book and dressed in red. That's basically kind of his calling card, like how you know how to identify him, and maybe that really was his signature color in real life. In my alternative history as well, he does mention that several times as his like signature color and like one he absolutely loves, you know, like all the different shades of it. And that's also the signature color of my character Cinnamon in my Atlantic City books. You know, some people, they just absolutely love red the way I love purple and dark blue and teal and like dark green and stuff. Mr. Postiglione belonged to the realist school of art. Frederick Richard Pickersgill also entitled this artwork Dante and Beatrice. There isn't a date I could find for this one either, but we know it was done sometime during the 19th century. Many of his works depicted scenes from history, literature, and religion. I personally am not that fond of this like style of artwork anyway. I guess the colors are just a bit too muted for me. Maybe he could have like made the human figures look a bit more realistic and stuff. I just basically like more like lively, bright, vibrant colors. It just looks kind of like stilted, more like kind of like a rough draft. But again, like, you know, like your mileage may vary. What one person like prefers in artwork, another person may, you know, not like at all. Raffaele Giannetti painted Dante and Beatrice in the garden of Boboli in 1877. This is one of a series of Dantean paintings he did in a pre-Raphaelite style, and I don't think I was able to find them when I was doing this blog post. Maybe I can search again and find some more, because like he did have a really, you know, interesting style. I like what I see, although again, like it's not my personal like favorite style, but I mean I do, you know, like his, you know, talents and stuff. I guess maybe I just would have preferred the figures be a little more in the forefront and you can like see more detail on them, and particularly the look of longing of unrequited love on Dante's face. Here's another Rossetti painting from 1856, reproduced in much larger scale in 1871. Dante's dream at the time of the death of Beatrice. The green clothes of the lady symbolize hope, the flowers on the floor symbolize purity, and the red doves symbolize love. This is Rossetti's largest artwork, and again, you can see the look of like longing and sadness and heartbreak on his face. This is something I love about Dantean artwork, particularly about artists who felt like a close personal connection to him, like Mr. Rossetti. They're like really knowing their subject and like putting the beautiful emotions like expressed in his face. I wish I had that kind of talent for like drawing and painting human figures, but you know, we have to go with what our talent and strengths are. Rossetti also painted this, the first anniversary of the death of Beatrice in 1853. It depicts the events of chapter 34 of La Vita Nuova, when Dante is interrupted from drawing angels by an unexpected visit. And this has a really good message for us on both the artwork and Dante's account of this in the book. Like obviously you should never forget like loved ones, and like at some level you never really stop grieving for people, but there just, you know, comes a point, particularly like from the first yard death anniversary on, you have to kind of start putting that a little bit more and more in the back window and start getting on with your life and like focusing on different avenues instead of being like constantly like so immersed in like just like raw like heartache and grief, because it's just not healthy for you, and you need to like move on at some point, obviously never forgetting the dead, but just like, you know, focusing on the land of the living. Like you're still in the earthly kingdom even though that person might be in the heavenly kingdom. And yet another Rossetti painting. This was done in 1852 and is entitled Giotto painting the portrait of Dante. His initials and the date can be seen a bit left of center. It was meant to be part of a triptych, with the other panels depicting Dante as a Florentine magistrate, sending his former best friend Guido de Cavalcante into exile, and at the court of Can Grande della Scala. And Guido de Cavalcante does appear in the alternative history as well, and there are at least one that I can remember off the top of my head, like quotes or like references to lines from his actual poems, and that's also throughout the entire alternative history. If you guys read it when it's finished and published, there are many like, you know, references and sometimes even like direct lines taken from the Divine Comedy and La Vita Nuova, and like different poems Dante wrote. So that would be like, like I guess a fun contest to see who can identify them all, like the chapter and verse of where they come from. If, that I'm giving something away, like maybe a free copy of the book or one of my other books or whatever. So that's something fun maybe you can look forward to. Giuseppe Berrettini, part of the Verismo, Italian realism school, painted the meeting of Dante and the Ilario monks between 1844 and 1845. It's set in an Augustinian convent, and this one isn't particularly to my personal style so much either, because it's just, so dark. Even though I love the color black myself and frequently wear black clothes, I just personally prefer my art to have, like bright, vibrant, happy colors. So obviously I know like you can't have like bright colors all the time, which is one reason like I started adding some more earth tones to my like colored pencil collection, because you can't always be doing like the colors you like. Sometimes you just are necessitated to use other colors when the scene calls for it. The famous Renaissance artist and art historian Giorgio Vasari, whose most famous work is Lives of the Artists, which is an early nonfiction book about like all the great Italian artists of the Renaissance and the Middle Ages, painted Italian humanists in 1544, depicting Dante and 6 other leading figures of the late Middle Ages. The others are Petrarch, Francesco Petrarca, his name is in Italian, Giovanni Boccaccio, who wrote the Decameron, one of my all-time favorite books, Cino da Pistoia, a poet, Guido Cavalcante, again, also a poet, and one of Dante's best friends in real life, in Guittone d'Arezzo. Scottish artist Sir Joseph Noel Paton painted Dante meditating, the episode of Francesca da Rimini and Paolo Malatesta in 1852. Though he declined an invitation to join the pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood, Sir Paton nevertheless painted in that style, and I've used this to illustrate many of my videos and blog posts in the past. It's like pretty self-explanatory. He's thinking of the lovers being swept around by the whirlwind while he's writing, and again in his signature color of red. Pre-Raphaelite Henry Holiday painted the simply titled Dante and Beatrice between 1882 and 1884. He traveled to Florence so he could see the Ponte Vecchio, the stone streets, and other real-life landmarks that existed in the Middle Ages firsthand. He also created clay models of some of the buildings. Like Rossetti's Salutation of Beatrice, this painting too perfectly captures the longing look of unrequited love, feeling a gnawing at your heart from being so close to someone you have such intense feelings for, but unable to do anything about it. And I've also frequently used this in the past as a desktop picture and a blog banner. It's just like one of the most famous paintings of Dante and Beatrice. Many people who are into that subject in Dante's life and times and work and stuff, they will recognize it, even if they might not know the title of the painting or the artist off the top of my head. And again, it just beautifully captures the look of longing on his face. Like every time I look at the painting, I just, feel it myself. It's just that, powerful and emotional and poignant. But this is titled Dante in Verona, and was painted 1874 by Antonio Cotti. I believe he was born in 1840. I was looking some things up recently, and unfortunately I just can't find out much of anything about Mr. Cotti. Like I even tried looking on the Italian Wikipedia, and there was basically nothing. It's just basically this picture he did seems to be like the thing he's most known for. But if you guys do know anything about Mr. Cotti, please leave a comment about it, because I would love to learn more. But unfortunately sometimes it just happens like that's basically all an artist is known for. They only did one major painting, and you can't really find out much about them outside of that. This was painted in 1864 by Jean-Léon Gérôme, called Dante, He Hath Seen Hell. Both this and the painting by Antonio Cotti, which I just showed, are based on the belief Dante's contemporaries had that he had truly visited hell. Like they thought they saw singe marks from the soot and the ash and stuff on his face, and he would well, at least according to the stories, he would politely, humbly acknowledge it with a little nod. Oh yeah, I really did go to hell. People, I guess they had more suspension of disbelief in those days, to believe he really literally had been there. But I do personally believe maybe not necessarily physically visiting in the material world, but he definitely had some very, very intense visions and dreams and stuff. In my alternative history, he has lucid dreaming. Obviously in the Middle Ages he wouldn't have used the term lucid dreaming, but the concept, in the way he describes it, would absolutely be lucid dreaming. And some people also believe his condition, which may have been epilepsy or something similar, may have also invoked a more heightened spiritual awareness, opening the third eye, whatever. So he was more easy to have spiritual religious visions and such like that. Annibale Gatti did several versions of Dante in Exile in 1850, 1854, and 1858. His oeuvre was historical works, and I again like the emotional look on Dante's face in this, and of course again that signature color of red. He's just kind of overcome with sorrow and just sadness, knowing he'll never see his home again, but again, he's bringing the book with him, so he's basically like filling the rest of his life with writing his magnum opus. And that's one of the things I love about art. If you're really good at like capturing human figures and you really feel a good personal connection to your subject, you can absolutely like perfectly capture the feelings of emotions. It's just like so like absolutely brilliant, and sometimes it can be just as good or even better than a photograph. Though a popular image of Dante with a hatchet face and aquiline nose persists, the pre-Raphaelites gave him a more human, even romantic look. Modern forensic reconstruction bears out this warm, human appearance of an everyday fellow, even if he might not have been classically handsome. And he does acknowledge this a number of times in my alternative history, like, oh, I know I'm not the most handsome guy, but like Beatrice tells him, like, you've always been the most beautiful man in the world to me because I love you, and that makes you beautiful. And like God chose to create you with like a certain face, but it like just makes you look distinctive. And like, you know, not all people can be absolutely beautiful, and sometimes like the inner beauty just shines through and makes them appear more beautiful. And particularly when you've known a person for a while, even if you like realize, oh, this person isn't like, you know, Rudolph Valentino levels of handsome, like, oh, he's becoming more and more beautiful to me because I'm getting to know him and love him so much more, and that just like basically increases like the sense of his beauty. Thank you very much for watching. My next video in this mini-series will be illustrations of the Divine Comedy, which will be spotlighting, I believe, 10 different people who have illustrated the poem over the centuries. My favorite of these is Bartolomeo Pinelli. I just love his art, just like, you know, so cute and sweet, and the way he drew human figures. It just reminds me so much of my own. So I'm really looking forward to that, and possibly in future I may do some more videos about like different kinds of aspects of artwork based on a Divine Comedy, like people who appear in the poem, like not necessarily doing artwork of them like in the actual poem, but just like scenes of their lives outside of the poem. So that's really something you can look forward to if you guys love art history. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and hitting the notifications bell. And I particularly love seeing comments from you guys, because I just like want to make more friends on BookTube and AuthorTube and feel like I'm actually, you know, interacting with people and having a conversation. So again, like, thank you guys again very much for watching, and don't forget to comment, like, subscribe and share, and see you guys very soon. Thanks. Bye.